Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, we're tackling the Bell Boeing V-22 Osprey.
Oh, I did it on the bird of prey that catches fish.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, so my guess is you're probably going to run. Oh, I didn't do that. I knew that.
You had me going.
But it is named after, fun fact, a bird of prey called the Osprey. And I initially looked into this. I'm thinking, oh, I'll do a little bit of, history. Like I
on the
couldn't
bird.
On the bird.
Okay.
But I also couldn't find why they chose Osprey because, we'll get to I thought maybe the Osprey floated and flew, but it doesn't, to tie in with, what we're going to talk about with the Osprey and what makes it unique. Other than being a pretty awesome, bird of prey, that's about it. And my guess is it was just a cool name, and Hawk was already taken and Eagle was already taken. I mean, you can't, I guess Osprey's kind of as cool as Hawk, like Red Hawk or Eagle.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
Yeah.
But where is the Osprey native to?
North America, and it's coastal. So it's mostly on the east and west coast, like wetlands. They do a lot of, you might find it near some of the Great Lakes, but they typically, because they eat fish, they're going to be near, big bodies of water. Typically.
So we have a lot living by the Mon. Is that right?
We do. There no, they're not like here, but there's Osprey on our coast. Let's say.
We got it. Okay, so let's get into the Osprey that we actually care about, Luke. Should I start with a little history?
If you'd like. Are you going to
do you want to even describe what it is? How about you tell me what this thing is, and then I will tell you all about how it's
so yeah. So if you don't know what this thing is, so first of all, start paying attention, folks. So the Osprey is one of the only. It's called a tilt wing aircraft. So essentially, in a takeoff position, it has basically vertical rotors like a helicopter. There's two of them that basically let this thing take off like a helicopter. But interestingly, they're on a beam like a T. And what happens when they want to go super fast, they just rotate the rotors, and then all of a sudden it flies like a fixed wing aircraft. So it's literally like the chameleon of aircraft out there. It's one of the only ones in production, and we'll get to some of the stats later. But the history that I found, and you can tell me if you found the same one, the impetus of what they needed, and I've been wanting to use that word for at least
that was good.
A week
that
or
was
two,
real good.
Was actually the Iran hostage crisis. Did you see that?
I didn't see that.
So
no, I did.
So lied. There was this Operation Eagle Claw, and it was the Iran
which
hostage.
Is way cooler than Osprey. Just saying.
It is Operation Osprey. It's just so Operation Eagle Claw, which was basically rescuing hostages during the Iran hostage crisis back in 1980, and apparently, the helicopters that were there were crashing like crazy. The mission ended up failing. And the challenge was they needed an aircraft that could not only fly really fast to get away from the bullets, 300 miles an hour, 316 miles an hour is pretty quick. I mean, it's no jet, but they needed something that could drop people off, because obviously if you're in an aircraft, you can't pick people up.
Right.
So they needed something that could do both, and they began this program in 1981 called JVX Aircraft Program. And I should have looked up what JVX stood for, but the Army was in charge of this starting in 1981.
Joint Service Vertical Takeoff Landing Experimental Aircraft Program.
Whoa!
Boom! Science.
Top of your head.
I just know stuff about the Osprey.
Yeah. So this is 1981. So 1982, they put out an RFP. For those of you not in the know, an RFP is a request for proposal, and all the big dogs, Boeing, Bell, Lockheed, all of them are invited to submit proposals. And then there's hey, you guys should really partner up. This is kind of a big deal. So eventually, only Bell and Boeing partnered up and actually submitted. So there was only one request that was submitted. So
yeah, man, hard to lose a contract when you're the only one who's here's our idea. How funny.
So they get awarded the design contract in 1983. I'm stunned by how quickly this stuff came together.
Really?
I mean, so the RFP is 1982, and they had prototypes in 1985. Like,
Oh, well,
that's
sure.
kind of crazy. I mean, this thing wasn't even on a piece of paper yet. Fun fact: the first aircraft ever designed 100% in CAD.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah,
Are you
yeah. I
sure?
saw that on multiple sites. It was the very first one that was 100% on CAD.
Wow. Good job, Osprey.
Um, so Bell and Boeing basically split the manufacturing and development process. Apparently, Bell Helicopters focused on integrating wings, the rotors, the drive system, the tail, the ramp, and integrated the Rolls-Royce engines. While Boeing, because maybe they were smarter, did all like the fuselage, avionics, flight controls, that sort of stuff. I'm assuming it's like, you guys are the grunts. Just put this thing together and we'll do the avionics and flight controls.
So I was thinking about it, but kind of opposite. I felt like Bell ended up having to do a lot more, in my opinion. And then Boeing was like, "Oh, fuselage, yeah, we got that down. Like, here you go. We have this like on the line already." That's kind of my take, but I'm probably wrong.
No, I might agree with you now that you put it that way. I think Bell did do more. Like, if you had to cut the percentages, they probably did do more.
Fair enough. I think you're doing a great job, honestly.
Okay, then I'll keep going. So, like I said, the first prototypes.
Frodo!
I've been thinking about Lord of the Rings.
I love that.
The first prototypes were delivered in 1985. And apparently they had like 5 or 6 of these things. The pictures are hilarious compared to what the current ones look like.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally looks like they were just like sticking this together with like square pieces of sheet metal and like it didn't look menacing. The current one is a pretty menacing looking, aircraft. The first 6 prototypes flew, so it took a year after they were delivered to get everything all ready to go. So actually a couple years, 1989, and then that was in the helicopter mode. So just takeoff, vertical takeoff and landing, and then on September 14th, 1989, a few months later, they actually did fixed wing mode. So they were able to take off and then turn the rotors and fly forward. The budget for these bad boys, 1986 dollars, was $2.5 billion with a B. But that got really out of control really fast. Apparently by 1989, it was like, $30 billion. Could you imagine going to your boss and just say, "Hey, I got this idea for a project. It's only going to cost like $100." And you're like, "Oh, okay." And then you come back 2 years later and be like, "You know what? This project ended up costing us $1 million." That's like the equivalent of going from 2.5 to 30 billion. Like, it's bananas.
Did you also see in that same like time frame? So like you're talking about these outrageous costs, right? Like back in like 88-ish, this was like a joint venture between like the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, like all these folks. 88, the Army's like, you know what? We're kind of broke and we need to spend our money somewhere else. And they just like dumped it on the Navy and the Marines to go figure out and said, this is your show to run now. So I'm guessing like, I know it all comes from the same pot, the money does, but like it gets divvied up. So that probably hit the Navy and the Marines that much harder once they started costing so much.
Yeah. And by 2008, they had spent $27 billion. And they're saying for the completion, so apparently this thing is being end of lifed in like 2055, something like that. So the people that are working on it have a few more years that they're going to be building them, all the orders that are in. But apparently they're going to spend another $27 billion until the end of production. So like all in, this thing is like a 50-some plus billion dollar endeavor that they thought was going to be 2.5.
I feel like 50 billion isn't outrageous. I mean,
if you see the videos of this thing,
it's a few dollars.
It is, but it is one of the most impressive aircrafts. Like, if I had to choose to be a pilot, this would be the thing I'd want to fly.
So I'm going to talk about some things, or we will eventually, that make me question if I agree with that statement. More for
Yeah.
your own well-being, Luke. But
Yeah.
I mean, coolness-wise, yeah, this is like one of a kind craziness going on.
Mm-hmm.
But also, and we need to take a quick break here in a minute. And there's a little more history to get into, but the amount that this has been used for the $50 billion price tag, I mean, maybe it's done things that nothing else could do, so that made it worth it. Because can you really put a price on someone's life, Luke?
James,
But
that was said so insincerely. Uh,
I mean, like,
no, you can't put a price on it. And apparently that's where this thing shines, is
I
like
think so.
these really hostile situations, quick in and out.
I know that one.
So yeah.
All right. So before we go on, I'm going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsor.
U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard.
The Army reached out. They said, hey, since we dropped out of the design of this thing, we got a couple bills sitting around for you guys, but they did not end up signing
jerks.
on. Yeah.
No, I love Army people. Sorry, I didn't call Army people jerks. I apologize.
No. Yeah, no, that was awful, Luke. A couple shout outs.
Who do we got?
John F. As a long-time, 1-year listener, I've finally decided to write in for 3 reasons. The first is to congratulate the pair of you on an excellent show. I've decided to return to school for environmental engineering. I know mechanical engineers can do the same type of work, but at least it's not civil. So John does know what we talk about.
Yes, he does.
The second is for stickers, obviously. And the third and final is a suggestion. I am highly interested in the reclamation of water. So you know that, like desalinization and other such things. And he ends the email with a go Mud Ducks. So,
nice.
You know, like John.
You must go to Ohio State then.
Must. Helen W. writes in. I started working as a mechanical engineer at Injection Molding Systems this June. I'd love to listen to more content about injection molding knowledge in the industry. I love the episode on material science since I'm interested in that field and looking into getting a master's degree on this concentration, potentially. Thank you guys. Sending good vibes and support, and some stickers from you guys would be lovely to have.
Do you think she went to Penn State up in the plastics joint?
So I wrote back because I was thinking the same thing. She went to a place in Vermont.
Okay.
And I said, I didn't know anyone but Barron does plastics, but they have plastics engineers, not mechanicals, doing injection molding. And of course, I had to ask, like, do you use mold flow and yada yada yada. And I saw she just responded.
Replied, of course.
And I haven't gotten to read it just yet. But thank you, everybody, for writing in.
Heck yeah.
If any of you want to tell us about why we're great, thank us for putting a show on, or request stickers, go ahead and do that by emailing us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And you'll only have to wait the same length of time that you waited to write in, which is 1 year for those stickers to arrive. And don't forget to subscribe, like, share. We love the reviews. And as always, you can visit the Unprofessional Engineering Store to buy your own darn stickers or t-shirt or other swag, just saying. Or you can just tell your smart devices to play the Unprofessional Engineering Podcast anytime.
I've actually had a couple people send pictures in of them wearing or showing off their new Unprofessional Engineering t-shirts. It's really very cool. Yeah, it's
Why are
very
you not
cool.
sharing this with me?
You don't need the chart or the
Jerk.
happiness in your life. What was I going to say?
More history, you said.
More history. Okay, so you're talking about 89, you know, the helicopter mode, the fixed wing mode, all that. Third and fourth prototypes were completed around this time in December of 1990, and they started their first sea trials on the USS Wasp, which is also a cool name, right? This is all going great, right? Well, fourth and fifth prototypes crashed in 91 and 92, so not going perfectly. And so I think this is why I was like, wait, you think this got done quickly? Yeah, those prototypes got made real fast. You're right. But then over the next few years, redesigns were done. Yeah, they had to add a lot of safety things in there. They had to work on getting things less expensive to actually manufacture these, all that good sort of stuff. The first of the 4 low-rate initial production aircrafts were ordered in the end of April of 97 and delivered in 99. So what are we talking about then? It was 81 to 99. So 18 years to start on that. So in 2000, There were 2 more fatal crashes, which is really terrible, killing a total of 19 Marines. And the aircraft was again grounded because of, obviously these safety concerns that they have. And different parts had to be redesigned yet again. The V-22 completed its final operational evaluations in June of 2005. So now we're up almost to 25 years to get this thing to be starting to do something useful. This was all deemed successful. Events included long-range deployments, and they tested high-altitude, desert environments, shipboard operations, like all these certain things, and all of the various accidents that happened, all of those problems had been addressed. So by September 28th of 2005, the Pentagon finally gave it the big old thumbs up and said the V-22 is ready. 458 V-22s were planned, maybe more at this point, 360 going to the Marine Corps, 50 to the Air Force. I don't know how they weaseled their way in there, and 48 to the U.S. Navy. And that's where my history ends.
And they also have delivered 4 to Japan. It's the only other country they've made them for. Cool colors too. It was like a tan one that I saw. It was a the gray ones look pretty menacing, but there was a tan one that, at least the pictures I saw, that were delivered to Japan. It was a really cool looking, and I think they're going to have 12 total is going to be the max, but that's the only other country. When you think about like other aircrafts, we tend to deliver those to lots of countries. But Japan, only one.
See, I was kind of surprised to see anybody else was involved in this. I mean, is it because we have military alliance with them? If it's fully funded by the United States government, you'd think maybe they're not a big fan of that. And it's such a unique technology that it kind of surprises me that it is shared out there.
Yeah. So before we get into specs and stuff, I want to talk about the remainder of the action. So let's get all the bad out of the way.
Yeah, let's get the bad out. We're a positive podcast.
We are.
Are we?
Yeah. So there were a total of 13 what they call Hull, Hull, Hull loss accidents that resulted in a total of 51 fatalities. And this is from 99 to 2006. There were 4 crashes. Since becoming operational, there were some additional crashes. I actually saw a video of one that was crashing on. It was landing on an aircraft carrier and it went sideways. It was actually like one of the guys on the ship were recording, and it actually crashed. Like you could see it, and then the video cut away. But it's kind of crazy how many crashes this thing had. But when you compare this to jets and you compare this to fixed wing aircraft, it's actually not nearly as many in the same amount of time. More people have passed away because there's obviously more people involved with operating these, and there might be a crew, where a jet there's 2. But
I wonder how flight hours weigh into that, though. Like, did jets get way more flight hours versus the Osprey?
The Osprey has 600,000 plus.
I saw that. That's a lot.
That's a lot of flight hours. And the way they calculate that, is they take every single one that's flown every single hour. So it's not just an average. It's that they actually record each individual flight hour.
That's like hours of? That's not like a prototype flying. Oh, is it all flight time?
I think it's all flight time, like base to base, training, operational.
That makes sense.
We want to get into the specs next here, James?
I think we do want to.
Let me hear it. What do you got? So what do you got first?
Oh, my goodness. Let's see. I just have a little table I put together that I can go through, and then I can talk about some of the goodness that goes on to this thing. So the first flight, they claimed March 19th of 89. Classification, like you said, the tiltrotor transport helicopter, rotor diameter 38 feet. The span is 83 feet, 10 inches, if you want to get down to it. Fuselage length that Boeing really cares about, 57 feet, 4 inches. Gross weight, so short takeoff, 55,000 pounds. Vertical takeoff, which is kind of neat that it does that, 47.5. Top speed, 363 miles per hour. It's no Concorde. Check out our episode on that, but it's pretty fast. Cruising speed, 317. That's about what I cruise at in the old pickup truck. Its power, 2.6 150 shaft horsepower Allison gas turbines, and it accommodates, this is interesting, 3 crew, but 24 passengers. And I think that really speaks to, the use case for this, right? It's not like we're gunning things down in this thing. It's used a lot for rescue missions. Like you can either deploy troops somewhere that's hard to get into, or you have that room to pick up people if need be. Let's see here. So more details as to the specs that I have listed out. The V-22 consists of one 3-bladed propropter, a turboprop engine, transmission, nacelle.
You nailed it, yeah.
Okay, mounted on each wingtip. For takeoff, the V-22 operates in helicopter mode with the nacelle in vertical position. In mid-flight, it rotates 90 degrees in as little as 12 seconds. Like, that has to be cool to see, right? It also has to be pretty nerve-wracking as it's going down. Horizontal plane mode is much more fuel efficient, which is kind of interesting. The V-22 is capable of STOL rolling takeoffs and landings when they're kind of tilted at a 45 instead of that 90 degree that they get to. Composite materials, fun fact, make up 43% of the airframe. And the V-22's wings rotate to align front to back with the fuselage for compact storage and transport. I think you mentioned already that it has 2 Rolls-Royce engines connected by drive shafts to a common center gearbox, which is interesting. So one engine can power both propropters of the engine in case one of them fails. So a little bit of safety backup.
A little bit of redundancy. An engineer was definitely involved there.
1 or 2 in CAD. Thank you. Let's see, when they're at the 0 degree mode, like the rudder and the elevator fly and things like that, it flies like an airplane, and there's actually built-in technology to this thing to tell it how it's supposed to react. Am I supposed to be reacting like a helicopter or an airplane, depending on the configuration of the propellers? So it's equipped with a glass cockpit, and it incorporates 4 multifunctional displays, MFDs, for those of us in the know. And 1 shared central display unit, and this allows the pilots to see all sorts of different images. Not as fancy as, I can't remember which one we were talking about, that they have like the little eyepiece that basically shows
like
them
the
everything.
heads-up display. Yeah.
And then the last thing that I have is about a little bit about the weapons. And again, this isn't really built to go attack stuff all the time, right? The BAE Systems developed the belly-mounted interim defense weapon system, remotely operated gun turret for the V-22. So again, this is a defense system. They're not necessarily going on the offensive with it. And this system is remotely operated by a gunner inside the aircraft who finds the targets using like a separate pod and a color television, and as well as infrared imagery that's built in. Other than that, I'm done. What else do you have, Luke?
I got a couple other ones, but I'm going to use my rant time, if that's okay with you.
I would love a game.
And it's a game picking on the city where these are manufactured. So fun fact, these are manufactured in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They make the Chinook, the big one. It's just a big old helicopter. That's their big heavy payload rotary aircraft. But they also make the Osprey in Philadelphia.
That's interesting. I did not know that. So I feel like I'm not going to do very well at this game.
And I don't think it's like Philadelphia, the city. I think it's like Philadelphia, like the county area.
Like Delaware County or something?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. But so here we go. Other than, here's the game, James. I need you to think of 3 things. We'll go with 3. Other than cheesesteaks and the Osprey, name something good about Philadelphia, or notable, or what they're known for about Philadelphia.
The Liberty Bell.
I'm surprised you got that. Okay, that's one.
I mean, good. I mean, they're sports teams, but they're questionably good. The Phillies, the Flyers, the Eagles, the 76ers.
Okay, so first of all, I know nothing about sports. All I knew is they had the Eagles.
Being the home of our first capital, I believe, or one of our capitals before it moved to D.C.
This game is nowhere near as fun when you're getting it right.
I'm sorry. Should I stop then?
No. So My list was Independence Hall, the Philadelphia Museum of Art, Fairmont Park.
You know how I feel about art.
Valley Forge.
Oh, Valley Forge.
Valley
sort
Forge. Yeah, sort of ish. The Comcast Center. So those I completely forgot about the sport. This game didn't go anywhere near as well as I had planned it to be to make fun of you. But yeah, sports. Yeah, there's a bunch of good stuff going on there, I guess.
Thanks, man. I love you setting me up to fail. That's great.
I mean, they got a basketball team, and we don't even have a basketball team here in Pittsburgh.
I know. That's a little rough.
They got a better soccer team
than the Riverhounds.
Yeah,
they're better than the Riverhounds.
I don't know. Theirs is really good. Coop used to
there's
always
like
tell me
an
about it all
actual
the time.
MLS team.
I think
ours
so.
Is like me and you playing.
Yeah, ours is like a bunch of like guys out of high school playing kind of thing.
So, it might still be in high school.
That game didn't go nearly as well as I had.
I enjoyed it. All right. I have what has it done as something that is left. Do you have something else you want to cover?
So I wanted to do a few other kind of stats, not about itself, but about like performance, I'll say.
Sure.
So it has at least the current version. So I heard there is a version that can make it across the Pacific on one tank of gas. My guess is they just fill the entire payload with gasoline, which seems really unsafe. But the version that I saw, it has an operational range, unladen, meaning it has just the crew, but not any
like
people.
A Swallow.
Yeah. An unladen Swallow. It has a range of 879 nautical miles. How many miles is that in real life, James?
I would have to go check out our wacky units episode to do the math.
1,011 miles. Its combat range is a lot lower because obviously it's carrying people. It might have payload, might have equipment. Its combat radius is only about 400. So it cuts it in half because of the payload. Is about 426 miles.
That's not real impressive.
Yeah. This thing can climb at anywhere from 2,300 to 4,000 feet per minute.
4,000? That's a mile a minute almost.
I mean, I guess if you figure out like miles per hour, but doing that vertically with a payload, kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It's 11.8 meters per second, if that means anything
it means
to you.
Nothing to me.
You talked about the cruising speed. You talked about the max speed. Was there anything else that I wanted to make sure that I think that's it. Those are the only additional stats I wanted to add that you didn't cover. Yep, I think that's it. Let's talk about what it does.
What has it done? On the 13th of April, 2007, the Marine Corps announced that it would be sending 10 V-22 aircrafts to Iraq. And this was the Osprey's first combat deployment. So 2007, that's 26 years after they decided they needed it. So turned it around quickly. They were primarily used in Iraq's Western Anbar province for routine cargo and troop movements, and also for riskier Aero Scout missions. General David Petraeus, I remember him.
Yep, yeah. I remember him too.
The top U.S. military commander in Iraq used one to fly around Iraq on Christmas Day of 2007 and visit the troops. So remember when I was like, I don't know if it's really worth the price tag that it's going on? These are like the claims to fame that it has that I can tell you about. At the time, then presidential candidate Barack Obama also flew in Ospreys during his high-profile Iraq tour in 2008. So they're really good for taking people around and showing them Iraq. The MV-22, it's a different flavor of the V-22, was deployed in Afghanistan in November of 2009. It saw its first offensive combat mission, Operation Cobra's Anger, which is great, right? Cobra's awesome. Anger on the 4th of December in 2009. It assisted in inserting 1,000 Marines and 150 Afghan troops into the now Zad Valley in southern Afghanistan to disrupt communication and supply lines of the Taliban. So again, difficult terrain, places that it's hard to get into. This is great for then deploying those troops. Granted, if you only can drop off 24 at a time or something like that, that's a lot of trips back and forth. January 2010, the Osprey was sent to Haiti as part of Operation United Response relief efforts after the earthquakes there, if we remember those. It was the aircraft's first humanitarian mission. In March of 2011, two of them from the USS Kearsarge participated in a mission to rescue downed Air Force F-15 crew members during Operation Odyssey Dawn. This was one of the first times that the Osprey was used as a tactical recovery aircraft. So that's cool. And then just two more that I have listed. The Air Force first operational deployment was by sending 4 Osprey to Mali in November of 2008 to support Exercise Flintlock. They flew nonstop from Florida to, that's pretty cool, with in-flight fueling. So like you said, it was just full of gas and somebody was dumping it into the tank as they went. That's not accurate. And then last but not least, in June of 2009, CV-22s, which is another flavor of the V-22, of the 8th Special Operations Squadron, delivered 43,000 pounds of humanitarian supplies to remote villages in Honduras that were not accessible by conventional vehicles. So a lot of that sort of thing. Hard to reach places, we drop stuff off. Hard to reach places, we drop people off or gather people up. But these are the best that I could find for $50 billion plus, Luke. Is it worth it?
So these are the ones that they tell you about, right? Like, you know.
So you're telling me there's others that happen that they don't tell me about.
I'm sure that the U.S. government never keeps certain operations like under wraps and secret. I would never put that past them.
I could see them doing that to the general public, but to me, a world-renowned podcast host of the engineering-ish variety, I feel like I have pretty high clearance.
So, a couple comments on what you just said. What were the two? So the first campaign was Operation
Angry Beaver. No, Cobra's Anger.
Cobra's Anger. One of the best code names I've ever heard. That
right?
Second one you mentioned, Flintlock.
Exercise Flintlock.
I mean,
that's good.
So, could you imagine on your resume, like, you got 2 people coming in. This dude's worked on Cobra's Anger, and then this lady comes in and she's worked on Flintlock. It's just like, whoever does the naming, like,
why does the lady have to work on Flintlock?
Okay, the guy could be working on Flintlock, and the lady could be, Operation Angry Cobra.
There you go.
Speaking of that, did you see there was a
Cobra's
snake?
Anger.
There was a white ball python that got loose in Pittsburgh the other day.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you see the person was holding it and fainted?
It's like, who walks their snake?
I know. It's so weird.
Couple last kind of fun facts before we wrap up here. Recently, the Osprey was out, and I'll say recently. These dates are all over the place. They added the capability for it to be fueled in midair.
Yeah.
And they also turned it into a refueler. So there's a picture of an Osprey with the little, gas, hose hanging out the back and a jet flying up behind it. So it can be refueled, or it can refuel other aircraft, which is, you talk about versatile.
I feel like in-flight refueling is one of the coolest things out there. It blows my mind that that's possible. It's really
neat. If you think about, my guess is they're pretty accurate, but I think the diameter on those, I was looking at it one time, like that the plug they got to go into is something like 36 inches. And as long as it gets within that 36-inch window, it'll kind of work its way in. But it also seems like one of the dangerous things you could ever do.
You're flying hundreds of miles per hour, miles and miles in the sky. Like
jet fuel.
Yeah, just dump it everywhere.
You're up there smoking as you're flying, flicking butts in the back of the plane.
Absolutely.
There up until 2020, there were 400 that have been built total.
Pretty
and
good.
I think the estimate is by 2055, whenever they end of life this and kick off their next new crazy project, they're supposed to be somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think it was 1,200. I think by the time they deliver additional ones, and was it 1,200 or was it 800? I think it was 800. It was like doubling the capacity what they have now for like the orders that they have in.
I got you.
So
that's interesting. I do feel like, you said maybe it's end of life in like 55 or something like that. That adds up when you consider this took them a good 30 years to get going, right? So why wouldn't it be end of life by time they could finally develop something else? Makes sense to me.
Yep.
Anything else you want to add in here, Luke?
That's all I got. Was this a write-in? I feel like this was
it
a write-in.
It was a write-in.
This
so
was a good
whoever
write-in.
wrote in, yeah, you're welcome. We just did you a big favor. But
Yeah.
also thank you for bringing up a topic. That was great. This is really interesting. Yeah. So if any of you have a write-in that's equally good or better, why don't you go ahead and email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. And until next time.
See ya.